I had always believed our marriage was solid, unbreakable, even. But as I stood in the doorway, watching my wife carelessly shove her clothes into a suitcase, barely acknowledging my presence, the truth hit me like a punch to the gut. I had been so wrong. She mumbled something about how she needed this trip. Her voice flat, indifferent, like I was nothing more than an afterthought, a background noise in her life. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, silently watching her move with a detachment that told me she had already checked out of this marriage. And then the smirk, slow, deliberate, dripping with condescension. "I'm going on this trip with the girls," she said, her tone laced with mockery. "And I'm going to sleep with a real man, just to see what it feels like." She turned to look at me, that same smirk playing on her lips. She was baiting me, waiting for a reaction. But I didn't give her one. I didn't flinch, didn't let her see even a flicker of pain. I just nodded, as if she hadn't just driven the final nail into the coffin of whatever was left between us. She thought those words would break me, that they'd crush me. But they didn't. If anything, they confirmed what I had already known: she was already gone. Maybe not physically, not yet, but the woman I had married, the one who once looked at me like I was her entire world, had disappeared a long time ago. And the worst part? I had seen it coming. At first, the changes were small, easy to brush off, little shifts that could be blamed on stress or the natural ebb and flow of marriage. I ignored them, convinced myself it was nothing. But as time went on, the signs became impossible to ignore. She started dressing differently, putting extra effort into her appearance, even when she was supposedly just meeting her girlfriends for brunch. "You look nice," I had said one evening, watching her slip into a pair of heels she hadn't worn in years. "Thanks," she replied quickly, not even sparing me a glance as she fixed her lipstick in the mirror. Something about the way she said it made my stomach twist. But I let it go. Then there was her phone. It used to be left lying around carelessly, on the counter, on the bed, on the couch. But now, it was always in her hand, face down whenever I entered the room. Notifications silenced. A new passcode. One she conveniently forgot to tell me about. "Hey, what's your passcode?" I asked casually one evening as she scrolled through her screen, her fingers moving with urgency. "Oh, I changed it." "Yeah? What is it?" She hesitated, just for a second. "I'll tell you later." But later never came. And when I brought it up again, she brushed it off with a laugh. "Oh, babe, it's just a girls' chat. You'd be bored," she said dismissively, like my curiosity was some kind of unwarranted annoyance. Whenever I questioned her growing secrecy, she would sigh dramatically, roll her eyes, and give me another excuse. "Work is crazy right now. I just need a little escape," she'd say, fingers still tapping away at her phone. Then, with a smirk that sent a chill down my spine, she'd add, "Don't be that husband, okay?" For a while, I convinced myself I was overthinking things. I loved her. I trusted her. That's what marriage was about, right? Trust. But then the girls' nights started happening more often. They stretched later and later into the night. And when she came home, she looked different. It wasn't just the usual glow of someone who had been out with friends. It was something else entirely. Her eyes sparkled in a way that made my gut tighten. Her lips, slightly swollen, like they had been kissed. "Had fun?" I asked once, watching her kick off her heels as she stumbled through the door. "MMHM," she hummed, distracted, distant. She didn't look at me. Didn't touch me. And her laughter, it had changed. It was softer now, secretive, like she was sharing an inside joke I wasn't part of. The woman who used to beg me to stay up late watching Netflix, to stay in bed with her for just 5 more minutes, now barely even acknowledged me when she walked through the door. And then, one night, I overheard her. I hadn't meant to eavesdrop. I had gotten up for a glass of water, padding quietly down the hall when I heard her voice in the living room. It was low, hushed, dripping with warmth in a way that made my blood run cold. I froze just outside the doorway, gripping the glass so tightly my knuckles turned white. "I can't wait," she whispered, teasing, playful. a tone I hadn't heard in years. A pause. Then a quiet giggle. "I'll make up for it, I promise," she murmured, her voice full of something that wasn't meant for me. And then, the final dagger, soft, smug, laced with betrayal. "He has no idea." Something inside me twisted, a slow, heavy dread settling in my gut. I should have walked in right then. I should have confronted her. But I didn't. Because in that moment, something clicked. She wasn't just sneaking around. She thought she was getting away with it. She believed I was blind, clueless, a naive husband who would sit by while she played her little game. She thought she had won. And that's when I knew. This wasn't about exposing her. It was about dismantling her. So I played my role to perfection. I became the doting, oblivious husband. I smiled, kissed her goodbye as she left for her so-called girls' nights, and never once let on that I knew exactly what she was doing. I let her believe she had the upper hand. Right up until the day she packed her bags. "Are you sure you don't need help booking your hotel?" I asked, my voice lined with faux concern as I leaned casually against the doorway. She barely glanced up from her phone, flicking a hand dismissively in my direction. "No, we already have everything figured out." We. She had no idea I had already been through her browser history, that I had seen the hotel reservation, under a single name. His name. She didn't know I had found the flight confirmation, buried deep in her trash folder like a secret she thought she had erased for good. There was no girls' trip. There was only him. I watched as she zipped up her suitcase, adjusting the straps like she was heading off on some carefree vacation. And then, she turned to me, and there it was, that smirk. "I'm going to sleep with a real man. Just to see what it feels like." That was it. The moment she laid all her cards on the table. The moment she showed me exactly what she thought of me. That she believed she had already won. That I was just some pathetic, broken man who would sit around, devastated, waiting for her to come home, tail between my legs, desperate for her attention. I nodded. "Okay." That was all I said. No accusations. No anger. Just a single, indifferent word. And that threw her off. She blinked, clearly expecting something. A fight. A desperate plea. But I gave her nothing. I'll text you when I land," she said, her voice uncertain now. "Sure." She hesitated, lingering in the doorway, waiting for me to react. But I just stood there, watching her like she was a stranger. Because that's exactly what she had become. Her lips pressed into a thin line, then she rolled her eyes, grabbed her suitcase, and walked out. "Don't wait up," she tossed over her shoulder. And then, she was gone. Convinced she had pulled off the ultimate betrayal. She had no idea. Because while she was boarding her flight, I was already 3 steps ahead. The moment she stepped out that door, she stopped being my wife. I wasn't going to waste a single second mourning this marriage. No. I was moving. Calculating. Setting the stage for a reckoning she never saw coming. She thought she was playing me. But I had already rewritten the script. I started with the money. We had a joint account. That was her first mistake. She had gotten comfortable using it, for household expenses, vacations, and more recently, high-end purchases that I knew damn well weren't meant for me. But I had been preparing for this for weeks, long before she packed her bags. Quietly, methodically, I had started funneling my paycheck into a private account, one she had no access to. I let the joint account sit there, untouched, just waiting for her to feel safe. And now that she was gone? I drained it. Not illegally, of course, I wasn't stupid. I left exactly half, just enough to keep things legally airtight. But the moment she tried to swipe our card for some extravagant dinner with her real man, she was in for a nasty little surprise. I wasn't done. I froze our credit cards. She had her own, sure, but I had been the one paying them off. Not anymore. The moment she maxed them out? That was her problem. She wanted independence? Well, she could have it. Then I changed every password. Bank accounts. Utility bills. Even the damn streaming services. Was it petty? Maybe a little. But mostly, it was about shutting her out completely. She wanted a new life? She was welcome to it. But she wasn't going to waltz back into mine like nothing had happened. Not a chance. I had to make sure she had no way back in. That's where my lawyer came in. The appointment had been set weeks ago, back when the late-night texts started, when the secret smiles became more frequent. Call it preemptive self-defense, call it good instincts. Either way, I had seen the storm coming long before she packed her bags. When I laid everything out for him, my lawyer didn't hesitate. "Let's make sure she doesn't take you for a ride," he said. By the time her plane touched down at her little love nest, the divorce papers were already filed. Irreconcilable differences. No fault state. Simple. Clean. All that was left was my signature. But I wasn't done. My lawyer had also drafted an emergency motion to have her removed from the house. Since the deed was solely in my name, all I had to do was prove she was living elsewhere. And once she settled in with her new man, she'd have zero claim to the property. She was walking straight into a legal minefield. And she didn't even know it. I needed proof. Sure, I could have confronted her, screamed, demanded she admit what we both already knew. But that wasn't enough. I needed something airtight, something irrefutable. Not just for the divorce, to make sure it was locked in entirely in my favor, but also to strip her of any chance to twist the narrative. That's where my private investigator came in. I had hired him 3 weeks ago, right after I overheard one of her late-night whispers. He was good. The kind of guy who could follow someone for days and never be noticed. He had already sent me the first wave of evidence, pictures of her and him, laughing, holding hands, checking into a hotel on a night she was supposed to be at a work dinner. But I wanted more. So I waited. While she sipped cocktails in paradise, my PI tracked their every move. From the airport to the resort. From the resort to an overpriced restaurant where they openly kissed over dinner. By the time she was clinking wine glasses with her so-called real man, my inbox held everything I needed, a full report, timestamped photos, and a beautifully damning highlight reel of her betrayal. This wasn't just revenge. This was a masterpiece in the making. Now, for the best part, getting her out of my house. She wasn't about to stroll back and like nothing had happened. While she was off playing house with her new toy, I packed up every last one of her belongings. Clothes, shoes, makeup, even those ridiculous decorative pillows she swore we needed. All of it boxed up and sent to a storage unit. Then I changed the locks. By the time she came back, she'd be locked out in every way possible. No home. No money. No safety net. She wanted a real man? Let's see how well he takes care of her when she has nothing left. I never called while she was away. Never texted. Never checked in. I wanted her to think I was sitting at home, clueless and waiting, playing the role of the pathetic, devoted husband. That's why 2 days before her return, I sent just one simple text. Hope you're having fun. Can't wait to see you when you get back. She responded almost immediately. Of course, babe. I miss you. Can't wait to be home. Fake. So fake. She had no idea that by the time she landed, the life she thought she was coming back to would no longer exist. She thought she was stepping back into the same routine, a husband still in the dark, a cozy house, and an easy lie to slip back into. Instead, she was about to walk straight into hell. Her flight landed at 6:42 p.m. I knew because I had set an alert, not because I missed her. God, no. But because I wanted to watch everything unfold in real time. Her text came in at 7:15 p.m. Hey babe, just landed. Can't wait to see you. Can you pick me up? I smiled. She really thought she could just walk back into her life like nothing had happened. I didn't reply. At 7:45 p.m., the first crack in her confidence. She called. I let it ring. She called again. Voicemail. I could picture her standing outside baggage claim, shifting her weight from foot to foot, phone in hand, frowning as the realization started to sink in. Maybe she thought I had fallen asleep. Or that I had simply forgotten. But she wasn't panicking yet. Not really. Not until she tried to use her credit card for an Uber. Declined. Maybe she thought it was a glitch. A temporary issue with the system. So she opened her banking app, expecting to shift some funds around. And that's when she saw it. The joint account, the one she had assumed would be waiting for her, was nearly drained. There was still a little left, but not nearly enough to maintain the lifestyle she had so comfortably built at my expense. That's when I finally sent a response. Figure it out. By 8:30 p.m., she finally made it home. It had taken her longer than expected, but that's what happens when you suddenly have to pay for your own ride. The Ring camera caught everything. She strutted up to the front door, suitcase rolling behind her, still wearing those expensive designer sunglasses and that same cocky smirk she had when she left. Then she reached for the door handle, and stopped. Her brow creased. She jiggled the handle. Then she pulled out her key, slid it into the lock, and turned. Nothing. She tried again. And again. Her movements grew frantic. She knocked. Then pounded. Then, finally, she started calling me. Over and over and over. Every call went straight to voicemail. And then, I sent her another text. You don't live here anymore. By 9 p.m., reality hit. The first voicemail was all fire and fury. What the hell, Ethan? Why isn't my key working? Are you playing some kind of game? Let me in. The second one was irritation, but there was still that undertone of control, of arrogance. Ethan, seriously, stop being a child. I just got home. Open the door so we can talk. But by the third, her voice cracked. Panic had set in. I don't understand what's going on. Why won't you answer me? Oh, she was starting to get it now. But I wasn't done. She knocked again. Softer this time. Hesitant. I could feel the fear creeping in through the screen. And that's when I decided to end it. I pulled up my prepared message, the final dagger, and hit send. At 9:15 p.m., she finally understood. Her phone chimed. I watched through the camera as she pulled it out, hands shaking, her face illuminated by the glow of her screen. Her eyes darted across the message, scanning the words. Once. Twice. A third time. As if she could somehow change reality just by reading it again. Hope you had a great trip. While you were gone, I filed for divorce. Your belongings are in storage. The unit is paid for 3 months. After that, it's on you. Our joint accounts are closed. All passwords have been changed. Your access to the house has been revoked. My lawyer will be in touch. Do not contact me again unless it's through legal channels. The color drained from her face. And then she crumbled. Right there, on the porch she used to call home. She sank to the ground, her manicured fingers clawing into her scalp, her body trembling as the weight of her choices crashed down on her. She tried calling. Blocked. She tried texting. Undelivered. She had no home. No money. No backup plan. And as for the real man she had thrown me away for? He wasn't answering either. He had probably moved on already, leaving her to rot in the mess she had made for herself. For the first time in her life, she had nowhere to run. At 10 p.m., I delivered the final blow. I let her sit there. For an hour. Let her marinate in the destruction she had single-handedly created. Then, finally, I stepped outside. She looked up at me. Red-rimmed eyes. Mascara streaking down her cheeks. The confident, smirking woman who had strutted out of my life 2 weeks ago. Gone. In her place was someone broken. And the best part? She had done it to herself. Oh, please, she whispered, her voice raw, barely above a breath. I made a mistake. I tilted my head, watching her unravel. You needed a real man, remember? She flinched. Like I had struck her. I didn't mean it, she gasped. I don't know what I was thinking. It didn't mean anything. Desperation laced every word. Please, I just need to come inside. We can talk. I shook my head. There's nothing to talk about. Her face crumpled. But where am I supposed to go? I shrugged. Figure it out. And with that, I turned and shut the door in her face. She wasn't used to consequences. For as long as I had known her, she had always had a safety net. If she messed up, someone was always there to catch her. Her parents. Her friends. And for the last 7 years, me. But now she had no one left. She had burned every bridge, and she was about to learn just how cold the world could be when no one was there to clean up her mess. The next morning, the first thing I did was check the security footage. She was still outside, curled up in the corner of the porch like a stray left out in the rain. At some point during the night, she had pulled out her phone, frantically calling people. But no one came for her. By 7 a.m., she was banging on the door again. Ethan, please. Just talk to me. I let her knock. Let her scream. Let her cry. I wanted her to feel it. The isolation, the helplessness, the cold realization that I was no longer her backup plan. Then, at 7:30 a.m., she finally said the words I had been expecting. I made a mistake. I opened the door just enough to lean against the frame, arms crossed. A mistake? I echoed. You mean leaving me for another man? Or mocking me on your way out? Her face twisted, her voice breaking. It wasn't like that, I swear. I pulled out my phone, swiping to the pictures. The ones my private investigator had sent me. Her, sitting in a restaurant, leaning across the table, laughing with a man I had never seen before. Her in the hotel lobby, wrapped around him, his hand resting dangerously low on her back. Her kissing him. I flipped the screen around, watching the blood drain from her face as she looked at the evidence of her own betrayal. It wasn't like that, I repeated, my voice deathly calm. She opened her mouth, then closed it. She had nothing. I didn't think you'd react like this, she whispered. I laughed. Oh, well, that makes it better. Her lip trembled. I was stupid, she choked out. I don't know what I thought. I got caught up in something, and I didn't realize what I had until it was gone. I shrugged. Not my problem. I started to close the door. Wait, she shrieked, grabbing onto the frame. I have nowhere to go. I met her eyes. And for the first time, I saw real fear in them. Figure it out, I said, ripping her own words straight from her mouth. Then I slammed the door in her face. By noon, I had blocked her on everything. That's when the calls started, not from her, but from everyone else. First, her best friend. Ethan, come on, she pleaded. Just talk to her. She's a mess. She should have thought about that before she walked out on our marriage, I said flatly. She knows she screwed up. Just let her explain. I hung up. Then, her mother called. Honey, I know things are difficult, but marriage is about forgiveness, she said, her voice gentle, like she thought she could soothe me into submission. I hung up again. By 5 p.m., I received the final, desperate text. I don't deserve this. I thought you loved me. I responded. I thought you were faithful. Guess we were both wrong. Locked. Let her sink. As for the real man she left me for? Gone. I later found out through mutual acquaintances that the moment she tried to go back to him, he vanished. Ghosted her completely. Turns out, she wasn't his only side piece, he had 2 others on rotation. And when she started spiraling, he cut her loose without a second thought. She tried staying with friends, but even they had their limits. No one wanted to take in a sobbing, broke, newly divorced woman with no way to pay rent. Her parents? Not as sympathetic as she had expected. Apparently, her dad had warned her not to screw up her marriage. So when she tried to move back home, he gave her 1 week to find a job and her own place. By the end of the month, she was couch hopping, jobless, and burning through the last of her savings. And me? I was thriving. A few weeks later, she sent me one last email. It was long, a full page of apologies, regrets, and empty promises. She told me she had been so stupid. That she had chased excitement, validation, and all the wrong things. That she had ruined the best thing that had ever happened to her. Then came the final plea. If there's any part of you that still loves me, please, let's try again. I stared at the email for a full minute. Then I typed out one simple sentence. I don't love you anymore. She had spent weeks scrambling, bouncing between couches, desperately trying to find work, clinging to the last scraps of her dignity. But there was one truth she couldn't escape. She had ruined her own life. And the best part? I didn't even have to do anything. The social fallout hit her hard. At first, she tried to spin the story, paint me as the villain. She told people I had overreacted. That I had been cruel. That she had just been confused. And needed space, but never actually meant to leave me. No one bought it. Because I had receipts. I never aired them publicly, never went out of my way to trash talk her. But people talk. And somehow, everyone knew. Even her own friends turned on her. The same ones who had laughed with her behind my back now wanted nothing to do with her. Some were disgusted by her actions. Others were just tired of the endless pity party. And her job search? A disaster. Turns out, when you've spent years living comfortably off someone else, jumping back into the workforce isn't easy. She had no savings, no backup plan, and no real skills to land a job that would maintain the lifestyle she had grown accustomed to. She had burned bridges in every direction. Now she had nowhere to go. Then, one day, out of the blue, I got a call from an unknown number. I don't normally answer those. But something in me just knew. So I picked up. I didn't say a word. Ethan, it's me. The voice on the other end wasn't the arrogant, smirking woman who had packed her bags and walked out of my life. No, this was someone broken. I said nothing. Just waited. I just wanted to talk. She murmured. Still, I didn't respond. A shaky sigh. I miss you. There it was. The pathetic attempt to claw her way back into my life. I could have hung up. Could have laughed in her face. But I wanted to hear just how low she had sunk. So I let her talk. I was stupid, she whispered. I thought I needed something more, but I didn't realize what I already had. You were good to me. You loved me. And I threw it all away for nothing. Damn right she did. I know I hurt you. She continued, her voice breaking. But I've changed, Ethan. I've learned from my mistakes. I just want to see you. A pause. Can we talk? Maybe go to dinner? Dinner. I almost laughed. The same woman who had kissed another man behind my back, who had mocked me on her way out, was now desperate just to sit across from me again. She didn't miss me. She missed the life she had before. The security. The comfort. But that life? It was gone. And I was about to make sure she knew it. I took a deep breath, then finally spoke. You needed a real man, remember? Silence. Ethan, please, she pleaded. I didn't mean that. I was being an idiot. Yeah, I said flatly. You were. She swallowed hard. I'm sorry. I let the words hang between us. Let her sit in the weight of her own regret. Then, finally, I crushed the last of her hope. I'm seeing someone. The silence on the other end was deafening. Oh, she finally whispered. You are? Yeah, I said casually. And she's amazing. Loyal. Kind. Actually respects me. A sharp inhale. A choked sound. She was crying now. I just wanted to fix things, she mumbled. I didn't even hesitate. You can't fix something that doesn't exist anymore. I didn't wait for her response. I hung up, blocked her number, and never looked back. I wish I could say I thought about her after that. But honestly, I didn't. I moved on. Focused on my life, my happiness. And eventually, I did meet someone new. She was everything my ex-wife wasn't. Kind. Loving. Faithful. Meanwhile, my ex? She kept sinking. Months later, I heard through the grapevine that she was still struggling. Still bouncing between couches. Still clinging to the last shreds of her old life. And the best part? The real man she had left me for? He had moved on, to another married woman. Karma is a beautiful thing.